The patient was dying. The surgeon was panicking. The heart monitor showed a flat line as the night shift cleaning woman watched from the corner of operating room 7. She had sworn never to touch another scalpel after the lawsuit that ended her career. But as the young surgeon fumbled with the arterial clamp, Maria Santos realized she was the only person in that room who could save a life. Welcome to Hidden Legends. Before we begin this powerful story of second chances, hidden expertise, and life or death decisions, tell me in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure they are. St. Mary's General Hospital in downtown Chicago operated like a machine, with each worker performing their designated function without question. The night shift brought its own rhythm. Quieter hallways, skeleton crews, and the kind of emergencies that tested everyone's limits. Maria Santos pushed her cleaning cart through the cardiac wing at exactly 2:30 a.m., the same route she had followed every night for 3 years. Gray uniform, worn shoes, and a name tag that read simply, M. Santos, Environmental Services. To everyone who passed her, she was invisible, just another night worker keeping the hospital running. She moved with practiced efficiency, mopping floors that would be dirty again within hours, emptying trash from rooms where life and death decisions were made daily. Her hands worked automatically, but her eyes were always watching, always observing the medical staff with an attention to detail that seemed excessive for a cleaning woman. What no one noticed was how those hands moved with surgical precision when she cleaned, how she instinctively positioned herself to observe medical procedures through doorway glimpses. How she tensed whenever she heard emergency alarms, her body responding to sounds that shouldn't have meant anything to environmental services. For 3 years, Maria had perfected the art of being overlooked. She arrived exactly on time, spoke only when necessary, and made herself as unremarkable as possible. The doctors and nurses saw exactly what they expected, just another member of the hospital's invisible workforce. Tonight, that invisibility would be tested in ways she never imagined. The trauma alarm shattered the quiet hospital corridors at 3:17 a.m. Code red. Operating room 7. Maria was restocking supply cabinets nearby when she heard the announcement, followed by the sound of running footsteps and urgent voices. She continued her work, fighting the familiar surge of adrenaline that emergency calls still triggered in her body. This wasn't her responsibility. She was just the cleaning lady. But when she heard the commotion escalating from OR 7, her instincts overrode her self-control. Through the small window, she could see medical staff surrounding an operating table, their movements showing barely controlled panic. Patient is a 28-year-old female, car accident with massive internal bleeding. She heard Dr. Kevin Chen, the night shift trauma surgeon, speaking in rapid, tense phrases. Multiple organ damage, possible cardiac involvement. Maria positioned herself where she could observe without being noticed. The patient was critical, blood pressure dropping fast. She could see the surgical team working frantically, but something was wrong with their approach. Dr. Chen was talented but young, and his hands showed the slight tremor that came with high-stress situations. The resident assisting him looked overwhelmed. The attending who should have been supervising was stuck in another emergency 3 floors up. That's when Maria saw the mistake that would kill the patient. Dr. Chen was focusing on the obvious bleeding while missing the subtle signs of cardiac tamponade, fluid building around the heart that would cause complete cardiac collapse within minutes. His surgical approach was textbook correct for the trauma he could see, but wrong for the complication he wasn't recognizing. Maria had seen this exact scenario dozens of times during her previous career. The patient had maybe 3 minutes before irreversible damage occurred. The surgical team was skilled, but they were missing the critical diagnosis that would save the woman's life. She watched Dr. Chen continue his current approach, knowing it would fail. The patient's monitor showed weakening vital signs. The clock was running out. For 3 years, Maria Santos had maintained perfect silence. Tonight, breaking that silence was the only way to prevent a young woman from dying on the operating table. "Doctor, you're missing something." The voice came from the doorway, quiet but carrying unmistakable authority. Dr. Chen looked up from his patient to see the night shift cleaning woman standing just inside the operating room, still wearing her gray uniform but somehow projecting a presence that commanded attention. "What?" Dr. Chen said, confusion and irritation mixing in his voice as he continued working. "You can't be in here." Maria stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the patient's monitor. "Look at the cardiac readings: elevated central venous pressure, decreased cardiac output. You have cardiac tamponade developing." The operating room fell silent except for the beeping monitors. Dr. Chen stared at the cleaning woman who had just made a diagnosis that he hadn't considered. "How do you—" he started. "The bleeding you're controlling isn't the primary problem," Maria continued, moving closer to the table. "There's fluid accumulation around the heart. If you don't decompress it in the next 2 minutes, you'll lose her." Dr. Chen looked at his monitors, then at Maria, then back at the patient. The readings were exactly as she had described, signs he had missed while focusing on the more obvious trauma. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. Maria Santos looked around the room at faces she had observed for 3 years without them seeing her. The moment of decision had arrived. "Someone who knows what cardiac tamponade looks like," she said simply, "and someone who knows you have about 90 seconds to save her life." The patient's monitor alarm sounded, indicating cardiac distress. Dr. Chen's training told him to continue his current approach, but every instinct said the cleaning woman was right. "What do I need to do?" he asked. For the first time in 3 years, Maria stepped back into her true role. "I need gloves," Maria said, moving to the sink with movements that carried the muscle memory of thousands of surgical procedures. Dr. Chen hesitated for only a moment before nodding to the surgical nurse, who handed Maria sterile gloves with the automatic response of someone following legitimate medical authority. "Feel for the pericardium," Maria instructed, positioning herself beside Dr. Chen. "The fluid buildup is creating pressure that's preventing cardiac function. You need to create a small opening to decompress." Dr. Chen's hands moved under her guidance, his technique improving immediately with clear direction. "I can feel it," he said, surprise evident in his voice. "Good. Make a small incision here," Maria said, indicating the precise location. "Minimal entry, maximum drainage. The key is pressure relief without causing additional trauma." The procedure took 17 minutes, 17 minutes of Maria providing guidance with expertise that clearly came from extensive experience. Her instructions were precise, her observations accurate, and her knowledge comprehensive. When the fluid drained and the patient's cardiac function stabilized, Dr. Chen stepped back and stared at Maria with a mixture of gratitude and amazement. "I've never seen technique like that," he said. "Where did you learn cardiac surgery?" The question hung in the air. The entire surgical team was looking at the cleaning woman who had just saved a life with knowledge that most cardiac residents didn't possess. Maria pulled off her surgical gloves slowly, the weight of 3 years of silence finally lifting from her shoulders. "Johns Hopkins," she said quietly. 15 years as an attending physician, 3 years as Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery. The revelation hit the room like a shockwave. Dr. Chen's eyes widened as recognition dawned. "Dr. Maria Martinez," he whispered. "The malpractice case, the lawsuit." "The same," Maria confirmed, "though I've been using my maiden name Santos for obvious reasons." Dr. Sarah Kim, the resident who had been assisting, spoke up from across the room. "You're a legend. Your survival rates, your innovative procedures. We studied your cases in medical school." Maria's expression remained neutral. "My survival rates didn't matter much when I lost that patient 3 years ago." "But you just saved this one, Doctor," Chen said, looking at the stabilizing monitors. "Your expertise, your knowledge. Why are you working as a cleaner?" Maria looked around the operating room where she had just practiced medicine for the first time since her disgrace. "Because sometimes the only way back to where you belong is through places you never expected to be." Word of the dramatic late-night surgery spread through St. Mary's Hospital like wildfire. By morning, Dr. Patricia Williams, the chief of staff, was waiting in the small break room where Maria ate her meals between cleaning shifts. "We need to talk," Dr. Williams said without preamble. Maria continued eating her sandwich, not looking up. If this is about unauthorized entry into a sterile environment, I can explain. This is about the fact that one of the most accomplished cardiac surgeons in the country has been emptying our trash cans for 3 years, Dr. Williams replied, sitting across from her. The question is why? Maria finally met her eyes. Would you have hired me if you'd known who I was? Dr. Williams considered this. Initially, probably not. The liability issues, the media attention, it would have been complicated. Exactly. I needed to work somewhere around medicine. Environmental services was the only way back into a hospital without background checks and credentials review. Dr. Chen tells me your intervention saved that patient's life. The diagnosis and technique were beyond what most surgeons could manage under pressure. Maria shrugged. Dr. Chen did the actual surgery. I just offered observations. Observations that came from surgical experience this hospital desperately needs, Dr. Williams said, leaning forward. Our cardiac surgery department is understaffed, especially on night shifts. We've lost 3 patients this year who might have survived with more experienced guidance. Maria set down her sandwich. I can't practice medicine. My license was suspended indefinitely after the lawsuit. Suspended, not revoked. And there are ways to utilize medical expertise within the system while pursuing license reinstatement, consulting, educational roles, surgical assistance under supervision. For the first time in 3 years, Maria allowed herself to consider possibilities she had forced herself to forget. What exactly are you proposing? She asked. What you did last night. Be available for complex cases, provide guidance to our surgical team, help us save lives that we might otherwise lose to transfer delays or inadequate coverage. And when the media finds out, when someone connects the dots between the disgraced surgeon and the hospital consultant, Dr. Williams smiled slightly. Maria, you saved a 28-year-old teacher named Jennifer Walsh last night. She has 2 young children who will grow up with their mother because of your expertise. That story matters more than any lawsuit. 8 months later, Dr. Maria Martinez stood in operating room 7 wearing surgical scrubs with her name embroidered above the pocket. She wasn't the primary surgeon yet. Her full license reinstatement was still in progress, but she was officially the senior cardiac consultant working alongside the hospital's surgical team on their most challenging cases. The patient was a 45-year-old construction worker with a complex aortic repair, the kind of case that required the expertise she had developed over decades of practice. As she guided Dr. Chen through the intricate procedure, she reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought her back to medicine. The medical board had expedited her license review based on testimony from St. Mary's surgical team about her consulting work. The media coverage this time focused on her return to active practice rather than her past mistakes. Most importantly, she had found a way to practice medicine that emphasized mentorship over individual achievement. Dr. Martinez, Dr. Chen said as they completed the aortic repair, patient vitals are excellent. Your approach worked perfectly again. Maria smiled, feeling the satisfaction of successful surgery that she had missed for 3 years. Our approach worked perfectly. Medicine is always a team effort. After the surgery, she walked through the hospital corridors where she had once pushed a cleaning cart in anonymity. The night shift staff nodded respectfully as she passed, some of them the same people who had seen her as invisible for 3 years. In her new office, she found a card that made everything worthwhile. It was from Jennifer Walsh, the car accident victim whose life she had helped save during her first night back in medicine. Dr. Martinez, it read, I don't know if you remember me, but my children and I will never forget you. The nurses told me that you were the one who diagnosed what the other doctors missed. My daughter Emma draws pictures of hospitals now, because she wants to be a doctor who saves people like you did. Thank you for giving me the chance to watch her grow up. Maria read the letter twice, then placed it in her desk next to her medical license, now fully reinstated. Sometimes the path back to purpose requires walking through places you never expected to find yourself. For Dr. Maria Martinez, it led through 3 years of night shifts and anonymous service before returning to the operating room where she belonged. But those years of invisibility had taught her something that made her a better physician. Medicine isn't about recognition or status. It's about being ready when someone needs you, whether you're wearing surgical scrubs or a cleaning uniform. The skills that define you don't disappear when circumstances change. They wait patiently until the moment comes to step forward and use them to save a life. Thank you for joining us at Hidden Legends. If Maria's story moved you, remember that expertise often hides in unexpected places, and second chances can come from the most unlikely circumstances. Tell us in the comments, where are you watching from, and who are the hidden heroes in your community? Until next time, keep your eyes open. The person changing your world might be quietly working the night shift, ready to step forward when lives hang in the balance.